name is Heather McGee, and this is the Happily Never After, a podcast that explores how life's endings can lead to a personal breakthrough. Because sometimes the end is just the beginning. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Happily Never After, a podcast where we explore how life's endings can lead to a new beginning. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate, review, and follow us wherever you are listening or watching the show. My guest today is Laura Danger. She is a licensed educator, author, and domestic equity advocate. Her work has been featured in outlets like Business Insider, Wondermind, Scary Mommy, and HuffPost. But today, she's here to talk about particular subjects. She's here to talk about her new book, right here, No More Mediocre, a call to reimagine our relationships and demand more. I think the subject matter will be very relatable for many people who are listening. Laura, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I am thrilled. Can always talk about this forever and ever.
Yeah, well, I've got some definite questions for you. Some of them are sourced from the Mini Mommy Facebook groups that I am in. But why don't we start with the intention of your book? Why did you decide to write No More Mediocre?
Well, I, like so many other people, got very online more than ever. I've always been very online, but very online in the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020. And we saw a hemorrhaging of women from the workplace, and even women who weren't in the workplace at the time were just totally stressed to a breaking point because of the lack of support, the lack of childcare. Just our entire lives were turned upside down. Everyone, and especially moms. Um, and as I was scrolling and as I was, the algorithm on TikTok and Instagram was learning who I was, it was feeding me a ton of parenting or mommy or, millennial motherhood partnership content. And a lot of it was these jokes that were making light or attempting to make light of like issues of inequity, issues of, oh boy, I'm so stressed out. I'm pulling my hair out. And it was like, har, this is such a silly issue that we're all dealing with. And meanwhile, I'm feeling the stress of it in my personal life. I'm watching my friends try to figure out if they're going to lose their careers or if how they're going to take care of themselves. Everyone I know is drowning and it's joked about. And it was just driving me bananas. I started talking about these things on TikTok, and it resonated. People were excited to hear the anger about it. People didn't want to laugh anymore. And so in my personal life, I'm married. I have two kids. I have at the time, I had an infant and a 3-year-old. So now I have a first grader and a fourth grader. So I'm very familiar. I'm in a heteronormative, heterosexual partnership, cis het partnership. I fell into so many of the traps that so many people I know and so many people have fallen into. So I know these issues intimately. I'm angry. I had the wonderful experience of being surrounded by equally angry and empowered people. And I wrote this book to change the narrative.
Well, I love that. And I will say, I read the whole book in an afternoon, and it actually made me think of something that happened to me a few months ago where I just had kind of a revelation. I was at the doctor's office and I had been dealing with insomnia. I'd been dealing with a ton of stress and anxiety out the door. This whole huge thing. It was really a big thing for me to deal with. My doctor asked me how I was doing. I told her, I was like, well, it's just how it is. And she was like, we could help you with that. And I just had this revelation, and I'm like, and this is connected to your book, I promise, because it made me think about how many things, and I'm a woman, a lot of my friends are women, so I'm speaking from that perspective. I'm sure, others do. It's just, I sit in the female seat. Um, about how we just say things like, oh, it's fine, or we think, well, that's just how it is. I think women are really likely to just deal with it, even when it's something that they're angry about, they're upset about, but they just feel like this is how it is, and they don't, even realize there's an opportunity to change it.
Yes. And that is, that's it. That's the whole thing is the jokes, just the way that our lives in general, like you said, like the horrible stress that you're dealing with, it is just so normalized and pitched to us as inevitable.
Yeah.
And so the whole point of the book is to say it isn't inevitable. There are different ways that we can live. You can aim for health. We can aim for these things. I hope that it is a hopeful book. That is the point of it.
I think the key is including actionable steps and things to actually do about it. Because I know in the mommy Facebook groups, there's a lot of catharsis, but there's not a lot of, well, this is what we can do about it. And I think that's what makes the difference with your book. Now, at the beginning of your book, you shared, and you kind of hinted at this, a personal experience, as many people do, that hits at the
Mhm.
heart of your book. Can you tell us a little bit more about your story?
Yeah. So I'm married. I'm married to a man that I have been with since I was 20. We've been together for a really long time. Um, we, fell in love. We had careers. We bought a home. Um, we had kids. We did all of the things, the whole like American dream path toward what we are supposed to do. And it was stressing me out. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, I found that we fell into these traps of I was doing more of the admin stuff and he was following through on things or taking direction from me. And this dynamic that in the beginning was fine and manageable, where it was like, oh, I maybe have stronger opinions on these things, or maybe I have more experience with it, or I have a more flexible job, which means I'm home more. My friends are the ones who are organizing the potlucks and things like that. So I'm participating. I feel like I belong. These little tiny things really added up and snowballed. And so by the time we got to the point where we were thinking about having kids, I'm starting to notice it. I'm doing more of the research and he is vetoing, like yes or no, or giving insight after I have brought things to him, which starts in the mommy groups. And for how wonderful of a resource they can be, they also are primarily a space for women, sometimes explicitly for
Yeah.
women. And I didn't really give it too much of a thought at the time, but I started to take on more of the research role. I'm telling him what to do. He's being told what to do. And it all sort of peaked. There's this moment that as I was hitting my breaking point, I did hit a breaking point. I was too overwhelmed. The inequity was too much. We were arguing about things. I just couldn't do it anymore. There was this moment that really, at the moment, I didn't realize was such a big deal, but it was with work. I was laid off from my teaching job, which I loved. It was very close to home. I was so excited about it. I was laid off the week before I gave birth with my second.
My gosh.
And as a teacher, it was the end of the school year, which meant that I was about to come up on summer and I was banking on having a job in the fall and I was banking on having health insurance. But because of the way that contracts work, I was in this space where I was thinking, if I don't have this baby by the end of the month, is it going to be covered? We don't have health insurance. I'm going to have to find a job.
My
And it
God.
was such a dehumanizing experience. The caregiving it took, again, the admin work that it took to try to find healthcare for our family, all of that it really smacked me in the face that where I'm not safe and secure, even though I think that I have a really good job. And I'm set. And that rolled me into fall of 2019. And I started a new job. I'm so stressed out. It rolls us into 2020 where again, everything gets pulled out from underneath us. And I just like hit I hit breaking point after breaking point after breaking point. So I mean, that's an incredibly long story. But that is really what got me to this like enraged scrolling my phone, being like, this has to be different.
Well, I think 2020 was the breaking point for a lot of couples. I think a lot of people had a similar experience to what you had because the stress was so high and everything just got dumped on people. And also, people were living in the same house with no breaks for months
Yeah.
at a time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think a lot of couples had to do some reimagining or divorcing
Hmm.
at that point. Okay, you used a phrase in your book that I thought was really interesting, and I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about it. The toxic American dream. What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, you raise a very interesting point about how we all got pushed into our homes in 2020. And isn't that supposed to be the perfect little unit, right? All of us just at home and oftentimes one income. Um, just we're supposed to have a little nuclear family unit. And it just is a lie. It's a totally unsustainable lie that we have enough resources emotionally, physically, um, socially to get all of our needs met within one primary relationship or as a role as a parent or a partner, having a career, finding fulfillment in a career. There are these set rules, a little cookie cutter that we're told will bring us fulfillment. If we work hard at these things, we will get them. We are taught that we get those things based on merit and how hard we work. And this toxic American dream that I talk about is really built on the idea that we all start on equal footing and that there is one way to find happiness. And anyone who's human knows that that's just not how it works.
Yeah. I think that's been one of my biggest lessons over the last few years. And it really was for me coming out of a divorce that the world is much wider. And, relationships can look much more different from each other. I'm not saying that very
Hmm.
well, but there's a much wider range of relationships, families. And funnily, before my divorce, I would have said that, but I don't think I really knew it until I was divorced and
Yeah.
had to build it myself because I think it's so ingrained by what we're told.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this idea that, like, your friends or your family are the placeholders for this eventual soulmate that you're going to find, and then you're going to complete your family. And I'm sure as you have found out, okay, there's so many different people you can love and they can show up for you in different ways. And it's just, there's such a wonderful world out there that you can have.
Well, and we could go way down the rabbit hole on this one. Have you ever heard of a fantasy relationship? Is that a phrase you've heard before?
No, tell me.
Okay, this is one I learned just a few years ago. I was like, "What is this?" That's a weird word, weird phrase. But diving into apparently it's when a family that looks like the picket white fence or whatever family. Things are perfect. They have those beautiful family photos. Everything looks like it's amazing. They have a beautiful house. But on the inside, the reality is much like you've described, where there's some rottenness going on. There's a lot of resentment, sometimes pretty serious, but it's very different from what they are projecting to the world. And I always wonder if, because I think that's probably more common than we would like to admit. I just kind of wonder if we do that because we feel like that's what we think success looks like. And we're trying to make our family that doesn't fit that American dream image. It's something different, and so it just is not working at all. I thought that was just very interesting when I heard about that. I was like, "Oh, I think that's like almost everyone."
Yeah. Yeah. There's always something underneath the surface. And I think that's what's so powerful about talking about these things openly. And especially pulling apart the jokes. Um, specifically because a lot of people do opt into this, like, I'm gonna laugh so I don't cry. Because when you have banked on a certain kind of life being fulfilling, it really, once you start pulling at the whole thing unravels. And there's a ton of core beliefs you end up unpacking. And like I said, like for me, when I knew I wanted equity, that was always a thing I wanted. And we both wanted it and weren't accomplishing it. So it was relatively easy to get buy-in to really be intentional to fix it. But when I started thinking about overworking, burnout, all of that, not just in my home, but way bigger than me, it really shifted how I thought about things. And I was like, oh no, my entire identity. Oh, wow, the structures of the world.
It's a
It's way bigger.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a big moment for a lot of people when they realize the experiences they're having. It's not you're actually not special. You are a cog in a wheel, however that
Yeah.
a cog in a system that all
Yeah.
works together. Now there's one I want to talk about some of your specific concepts that you have in the
Mhm.
book, but I have one burning question that's been on my mind, so I don't want to wait any longer to bring this up. There are because I have big feelings about this. There are endless Facebook groups with women talking about taking on the bulk of domestic and relationship labor, but there's a little bit of a difficult crux because how if your partner doesn't care about this, you talk in your book about the driver and the person that's being driven.
Mhm.
Like I hear women, they're buying these books, they're buying these, why does he do that? Why, all these things diving into it. And my question is always, is your partner buying the books? Is your partner trying to figure this out or is it just you? How do you, because I don't think this is a small number of people. If your
No.
partner doesn't care about it as much as you do, what do you do with that?
It's info. It's info. And it's Audre Lorde who writes this incredible it was a speech that she spoke in 1981 um, about anger. It's the uses of anger. And I write about that in the beginning of the book very purposefully because the anger that you feel, the resentment, the bubbling up, I'm all too familiar with that. I can be pretty reactive. And I'd be like, no, 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 I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be calm, calm, calm. And then I would explode. And then I was like, oh, that's a me thing. That's a totally an inappropriate reaction. And that was true. I was not handling it well. However, that cycle continued of me simmering, simmering, boiling because I wasn't taking the information of that anger and resentment and actually making a plan or turning it into something. And I think joking about it simmers it down, suppresses it, takes the wind out of it, the power out of it. And so if you are buying the books, and so many times, and I feel like this is what you're getting at, so many times you will see a picture in a Facebook group of a book with like sticky tabs and highlights. And it'll be someone being like, oh, I handed this to my partner and I couldn't get them to read it. And it's incredibly common and so not okay.
I want you
And
to read this and this and this and give me a book report.
and like I think the thing there is we want our relationships to be quality. We want to feel seen and loved and cared for. And if I had a friend, not my romantic partner, if I had a friend even and I was like, "Hey, I had a song that I think that you would like." I would want them to listen to the song. And that's just a song. If I had a partner who I was like, "Hey, we've been in this cyclical argument for 3 years and you say you don't want to fight and I say I don't want to fight and I have possible solutions and they're not joining you in it." That is a rejection.
Yeah.
It's a straight up it's a dismissal, a rejection, and it because it's inaction, a lot of times there's this deniability that's like, "But I didn't do anything." You didn't do anything, which is the problem. That's a rejection. And you can't convince somebody to show up and care if they aren't doing it themselves, unfortunately. But it's
Yeah.
info.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to frame it, that is information for you to take in. It's not necessarily it doesn't have to be a roadblock. It's just something you take as, "Oh, okay. This is what
Mhm.
we're dealing with." I mean, it does make me think about, sometimes I will see conversations where women are talking about their partners and they'll say something, "Well, he's just not good at that," or,
Mhm.
"He just doesn't know any better." And I get kind of frustrated, honestly, when I see that. Again, it's coming from my divorce point of view because they do know. They're not dumb. They do know
Mhm.
how to do these things. They are not dumb, and, I'll see things like, maybe their birthday came and went or Christmas came and went and their partner did literally nothing. And someone we'll even do it to each other. Like other women will comment and they'll say things like, "Well, I just give my partner a list." And it's like
Yeah.
that misses the point. It's not like
Yeah.
he asked for a list. Like you're still doing the whole thing. And we just I think sometimes we treat partners like they're stupid, but they aren't.
I'm totally with you. That and one of the things that really sticks out in my mind from when I was like a new parent in those mom groups was I want to say every couple of weeks there'd be a post from someone being like, not even once a day, how do I get my husband to clean?
Yeah.
And it would be like, here's the chore chart that I came up with. Here is the positive motivation system I came up with. And to your point, it's patronizing, but they are in those situations putting themselves in that role, which is, and I'm sure we can talk about this more, but this is the whole issue with the direct being directed, the loop of the nag paradox,
Yeah.
where it's you are telling me you want me to tell you what to do, but then when I tell you what to do, you get upset or react emotionally or accuse me of being controlling. It puts that person who is trying to get relief into a really tough situation.
Well, it makes me wonder too if it's useful to go back and think about what does it mean to be partners? Like, what is a partner? Is a partner where
Yes.
you tell them what to do and they do it? I don't know that for me, that would not be acceptable. I have a lot of triggers around that. Like, I do not want to be in charge. I was the eldest daughter. It's like I've been doing this my whole
Oh,
life. I'm
mhm.
done with this. To me, partnership is you both own the outcomes. It's the other person coming up with ideas and you really collaborate rather than, like I will never be that person to give someone a list and say, just pick something off of this. Like I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and okay, so something that comes up a lot of like, how am I supposed to know what to do if you're the one who's in charge of the household? Isn't it unfair to expect me to jump in and you're upset I did the wrong thing? And I do think there's some validity to that when you are both engaged. And something that I've done coaching and workshops and all sorts of things like that on the nitty gritty, the logistics of making this work. And one of the things that we do is, and I've worked with other families and organizations to do this, is to come up with like a high impact 5 or a high impact 10. And you can do it as a family or you can do it as an individual. And it's basically coming up with a list of things like, hey, if you notice that I am at my limit, these are the things that can be done in the household that will immediately relieve something. So, for example, a lot of times in the kitchen, think about like there are a couple of spots that if they're not cleaned up or it's a task that is unfinished, everything else is sludge. Like it's really hard to function. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, check. Are the dishes put away? Is the trash slightly overflowing? How's the recycling? You can you can say, okay, is there clothing that needs to be started in the wash? Does something need to be brought up? It is, or clear the countertop because the visual clutter is something that really matters to you. Vacuum so nobody's stepping on crumbs. Even for me, as somebody who gets decision fatigue and like paralysis when I'm overwhelmed, because we explicitly lined up a few things that really help and a few things that are like immediate relief, doing those things, one, making the list is a way of showing up for each other. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, this matters. But two, in the moment, it is, hey, I see you. I notice this is too much. It's too much for us. I'm showing up for you. It's an immediate positive interaction and it's an act of care, which is like, hey, win-win all around.
Yeah. And I heard about this the other day about if you start to feel contempt for your partner, you're really in the red zone. And
Yeah.
things like this push you in that direction.
Yeah. 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 And that's part of this whole loop. Like it's embedded into the system of the nag paradox because one party is always asking for something and the other party is always being directed, critiqued, even if it's just about the task, when you are stuck in that ping pong, it's like defensive, critique, criticism, defensive. And over time, that will feel it's very corrosive and it can totally destroy your relationship, your connection.
Yeah. Well, and two, I know we've been talking around this a little bit, but can you put a finer point on what the nag paradox is? Its impact. I know we've been talking around it, but maybe
Mhm.
just with more of a focused detail on it. What that is.
Yeah. The nag paradox is the corrosive cycle of one party managing more of the mental load and the other party taking directions, waiting for a list, um, being managed, monitored. And it is the automatic default setup that so many of us are taught. It's one party is a domestic engineer and the other party gets the honeydew list. And embedded in that is decision fatigue, is a demand of emotional and cognitive labor from one party. And it is a snowball effect and it is just a total, it creates this wedge, erosion. It can really destroy your partnership. And yet, we're taught that that's how things are done.
Right. If mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah. Happy wife,
Speaking of
happy life.
toxic. Yeah.
Ugh.
Not good. Okay, I like this line from your book. This really hit me. Sometimes we believe we aren't real mothers if we aren't in a constant state of overextension and sacrifice. And I think that kind of speaks to how we put ourselves in these positions sometimes. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's tough. And actually, I noticed that, I wrote this whole book on it. And I live this stuff. And still it seems like when I'm feeling insecure or inadequate or like I feel directionless or I don't have a grasp on how to manage, like my kids are going through a growth spurt and changing how with their needs. I go into this zone of I'm not doing enough. I am or I'm not managing things well enough. I should be doing more. This should be easier and I should constantly be working. And I caught myself doing it the other night because I'm like, I'm in between projects right now and I'm feeling a little bit out of control with the state of the world. And instead of taking a little bit of time to relax, I was like frantically on the Chicago mom parenting boards looking at like, okay, maybe we aren't going to do regular summer camp. Maybe we're going to do like a specialized thing. Oh, and I had like 50 million tabs open. I'm on every board looking up. And I was like, it's 11 p.m. It's going to be okay to chill out for a little bit. I'm not a bad mom for like pausing. It's going to be all right. But it's even when I'm not getting the outside pressure, um, I have really, really internalized it that I should always be working. And I think the modern woman's dilemma is that we should always be working at everything all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's even like seen in the way that we talk about, celebrities or whatever, that we really down on women that seem to have a little bit of a life of leisure, like we
Mhm.
really go down that road of critiquing them. There's something you made me think of too. Oh, I know what it is. I think sometimes, and please disagree with me if you don't think this is correct. I feel like sometimes as moms, we get real comfortable being martyrs. Like
Mm.
I think we put ourselves in that position even unconsciously. So on the outwards, we're like so mad about it, but we also put ourselves there by not demanding more and putting our actions behind our words. But something that I realized about myself, a mistake I had been making years ago, was that I think sometimes we put ourselves in the martyr position, like, oh, I'm working so hard and this other person isn't working so hard and I'm the good one and they're the bad one. I actually think that's an ego thing because I think
Mm.
sitting in that spot means they're always the bad one, quotation marks. I'm always the good one. And then I don't have to deal with my own stuff, my own things that I need to work on. That was a bad day in therapy, but it was critical for
Yeah.
me to start, like, changing the way I behaved in relationship.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's it's such a nuanced thing to think about because a lot of times, say you are in a dynamic where someone is downplaying, being like, why are you freaking out? Why are you constantly on my case about this? It's not a big deal. Blaming, deflecting, dismissing. There is this reaction, like totally understandable reaction to then go, you have no idea. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to be super independent. I don't need you. And it is that it's like, yeah, actually, we do need other people, and it is too much. And I think, I mean, what I hear you saying is not to blame necessarily the individual because, yeah, we've been put in this position and we can get ourselves out.
Yeah,
There are different ways. And sometimes, if the person you are like begging to see you is not seeing you or not validating you, one of the things that I talk about in the book is like you can start to develop and get your needs met in other ways, even if it's joining a book club, finding opportunities where you can get involved, in a professional setting and really being intentional about investing there. And what I have experienced and seen is you start to get that sense of self back and you start to see your self worth and you go, oh, there are ways that I can get my needs met. Maybe this familiar toxic situation isn't as safe a bet as I think. Maybe I could find, like you said, like a different way to find a family or support and get my needs met.
yeah.
It's pretty interesting how that happens.
Yeah, that there are other options or different ways
Mhm.
to approach it. We don't really the way I think about it, and I think some people struggle with this, but for me, this was life changing. Everything we do is a choice. Like, it's so easy to be like, oh, well, I don't have any other options, or,
Mhm.
well, I can't change this. It's a choice. It's a choice, and I think sometimes the price to change things is pretty high. And maybe
Yeah.
that's not a price you want to pay, which is valid, absolutely valid. But I do think we have to get out of this, like, helpless mindset of, well, just how it is. It's not. You are choosing it. You are choosing it.
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah,
like,
there's
don't
always something. And there's like regardless of everybody's circumstances will be different. And I think that that's really like an important thing to note is that like, even financially, I have a degree, I have 10
Yeah,
years in a professional setting and a degree, which makes me have opportunities that someone else who is not in that situation might have.
yeah,
And there's always something. There's always a shift or a choice that can be made. There's always something.
yeah. I like to say, don't say no to yourself. Other people
Nice.
can say no to you, but don't you say no to yourself.
Yeah.
Now, you also talk about something else I thought was interesting. It's called sitcom syndrome. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So I don't, did you grow up watching TGIF?
Sometimes. We did
Okay.
not have a TV at our house because we
Oh,
were
wow.
fundamentalist
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Christians. So sometimes when I got older, they kind of relaxed the rules. So when I was older, yes.
Okay. So even from people who didn't watch it, I feel there have been stories in our lives that very stereotyped. Man is a big dum dum, doesn't know what he's doing. He works hard all day and should kick his feet up. It's okay once he gets home if he fibs a little bit. He hides in the bathroom. He pretends he doesn't know where things are. And she is the constantly anxious, totally neurotic, like type A, yelling at people, telling everyone what to do, the martyr, sometimes very, very sweet, always very forgiving and humorous, but the butt of the joke. So, this stereotype has been really reinforced by religion, by culture, by media. We see glimpses of it in the people around us and the behaviors that have been played off as like we said, inevitable, funny, sarcastic, lighthearted. And what happens as a consequence is when we have valid rage, valid anger, a valid criticism, the reaction to that is brushed off. Sometimes it's an external brushing off where you bring something up and you're told you're overreacting. It's just a joke. Maybe if you would have asked nicer, it wouldn't have caused this fight. Or the internal issue, which is I have to laugh it off. I must be overreacting.
Yeah.
Other people are fine with this. Why do I think I'm special? And it's that internal laugh track that tells you you're making a big deal out of nothing. And this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, you just invalidate yourself, and
Yes.
puts you in a weird spot of you don't know what's up or down. And I do think women in general tend to be pretty hard on themselves most of the time. So you get
Mhm.
into this spot where you just feel like you don't know what's real. You don't know, like, I think a lot of women, their first thing is, oh, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to fix?
Yes.
And so they invalidate, which is true. I mean, that's true sometimes, but it invalidates the times when you are frustrated for a very valid reason, something that is not right.
Yeah. And what is interesting about women and I go into this about emotional labor, um, and anytime there is an imbalance of power. So oftentimes emotional labor is racialized. Um, it is gendered. It is demanded of someone. It's sometimes between children and adults. Anytime there's an imbalance of power, oftentimes the one who is subjugated or marginalized has to tend to and protect the party with more power. That's the expectation. Um, and so if there's this dynamic in a household where one party, a lot of times, let's say it's a man and a woman, women are expected to protect the feelings of men. Like broadly in the dominant culture, that is how it is. This is the patriarchal norm. If she's angry, that's like that's a morally neutral thing to be angry. It's the calling someone a name, lashing out, like
Yeah.
the really, like you said, contemptuous, like bullying that you can do of someone is one thing. But saying, "Hey, that pisses me off. Like I'm really upset about this dynamic. I'm interpreting how this is happening as you don't care, or
Right.
it's coming off like you expect me to do this. Is that what's going on?" That's totally a thing you should be able to say in a relationship. And a lot of times, the fact that that might hurt someone's feelings or they might have a negative reaction to being told that they're negatively impacting someone, women are dissuaded from bringing it up because it's like
Yeah.
just being upset is perceived as an attack. So it
Yeah.
puts women in a real tough spot.
One thing I will say, I do wish couples that are in cishet relationships, I do wish something more men understood. I think there are men out there that I'm just trying to do what you want. You're in charge. I want to make you happy. And so they don't really have a lot to add at times. And something I wish more of them understood, like the ones who do want a good, equitable relationship, I wish they understood that if you don't bring things up, if you don't talk about it, if you don't ask questions, they don't interpret that as you being easygoing. They interpret that as you don't care. Like
Yeah.
that's what the message probably unintentionally that you're sending when you are not involved in helping drive the bus.
Yeah. And I feel like people who have been in that dynamic also, it, what happens is I never bring anything up. It's like a defensive. I don't ask anything of you. I don't, it's this
Like it's good.
I'm no problem. But then oftentimes there is resentment on both sides that comes up explosively when an argument happens. Um, and this is something very interesting about a lot of times what I've noticed is whoever the domestic engineer is, regardless of gender, they are making internal compromises And for example, if they pick dinner, the other party may say, oh, Laura picked dinner, for example. On the surface, you could say, it was my choice. I'm the one in charge. In my brain, though, as the person doing the deciding, I'm thinking, my two kids will eat this. Here's our budget. My partner will eat this. This is our schedule. I don't necessarily want to eat at that restaurant,
Yeah.
but I'm going to take everyone there. I get blamed for picking. However, I had to make a choice for everyone else with their interests. So when you say, "Hey, I want you to make a choice," what you are usually asking is, "I want you to make a considerate choice that considers all of our needs and preferences in a
Yeah.
way that's going to be successful." And that's not
Yeah.
easy.
Well, and that is, I think you're hitting on a different experiences of that dynamic because for women, I think what you bring up is very common. You just take what you want out of the equation.
Yes.
You just do what, because there's a lot of factors. I mean, I have 2 kids, they have very different palates and very different interests, and a lot of times I just have to tell them, "You guys, I'm not making 3 different dinners, so we've gotta negotiate a deal here." But for a lot of women, they just take their choices out of it, and they're making it work for everybody else, whereas I think sometimes other people don't do that, and so
Hmm.
I want to see all of us being better at hitting the middle ground where you do matter too.
Yes.
Like where everyone's in
Yes.
the picture.
Yes, 100%. And that's way easier when someone else is sharing the mental load with you and the cognitive labor and managing the emotional load of the household, which is the disappointment of your children and even the disappointment of themselves that maybe they can't, they're going to pick someone else's preference this time. It's emotional labor and considering someone else's feelings and, editing your own is not a bad thing, but in a quality connection, it would be shared.
Well, in your book while I was reading, I had to laugh so hard because it was reminding me of that scene in The Breakup where Jennifer Aniston and, I think Vince Vaughn was
Yeah.
the other one, where they're having a fight about cleaning the kitchen or something like this, and and he goes, "Well, what is the problem? I do everything you tell me." And she's like, "I don't want you to just clean. I want you to want to clean." And they had a huge,
Yes.
like, blow up fight over it, and just it's funny scene, but it's also, real life.
100%. And that's like, it's such a misunderstanding or misinterpretation, misalignment on what it means to be in a relationship. And those two should have the breakup was a good fit for them.
Yeah, overdue. I mean, really the things we're talking about today, I think we wait too long to address these issues because a lot of times, we just go with it, hope it changes, and we don't really talk about it. But then by the time it explodes, to your point, you're in a really damaging spot. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
times, women are guilty of this because you're just like, oh, well, this is just how it is. And so then it goes way too long without the both of you addressing this. And by then, it's a lot harder to address, and you're probably real close to the red zone if you're not already in it.
Right. Right. And to your point, if you have addressed it and you have addressed it again and then again and then
Yeah.
again, it's information. It's important information because concern about this is valid.
Yeah. Now, as we're building up here to the end here, something that I wanted to ask you about relationships seem to be going through a real sea change. More women are filing for divorce or they're refusing to date at all. They are deciding not to get into partnerships, anything. They just are going life solo. And you have described an expansive look at love. I wonder how all of this fits together because on the surface, it looks like women are fed up and they don't want to do it anymore. But I wonder if there's more to it.
Well, I think that you mentioned something very interesting in the beginning. And I share a couple of stories of people doing it differently in the book, many stories actually. But in that specific section, I talk about expansive types of love. Families can look so different. And I think that if everyone took a moment to look around at the friend who you send a song to and who listens to it, or the person that last made you feel really secure and safe, or the people in your life who you just can trust to be there or who you would be able to call, some of us might notice that there are fewer of them than we wish. some of us may think, oh, wow, there are people that I really wish I was investing in more. And I think there are a couple things going on. People are looking at their households and going, oh, wow, this is so unsustainable. Some of them are thinking and having very um, honest conversations. This is how it worked with me. Had a very honest conversation that this is unsustainable. I do not want this setup anymore. If you're in, come on, get in. I like you. You seem to like me. Let's try to be intentional and do something new. You might be doing that where it's like, hey, we're going to spend more time intentionally with other people and expand our network. Or you're saying, hey, I actually would not like to be in this partnership anymore and I want to transition to co-parenting or something else. Um, or yeah, people are saying the most loved and fulfilled I've ever felt was having dinner with my friends every night and doing the laundry with them. And that could mean outside of a partnership or within a partnership. So people are seeing that there are alternatives. There have always been alternatives. And so it's like a both and, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Of trying to break like what you have been conditioned to think it's supposed to look like and considering other options and try it and see how that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we're wrapping up, I did want to leave everybody with like some sort of actionable, which you really cover well in your book. So if you want more, you have to read the book. But in what the time we have today, for people that feel like they're in this situation, what is like step one that they can do to start moving in a different direction?
Step one, I think if we look at the issue as we've been taught to accept this mediocre, under delivering norm, we've taught that that is inevitable and acceptable. We're going to function in that space. We're going to go with that. I think step one is envisioning if this wasn't the norm, if this wasn't inevitable, what type of life would I have? What would I have more of and what would I have less of? And then from there, figuring out how you can take a step. If that's adding 30 minutes a week on the phone with a friend, that's a huge amount of investment. If it's Googling, if it's searching for a class that you've always wanted to take, like just opening your mind up to what is possible and
Yeah.
just having that North Star, I think is really important.
Yeah. And I will say something that helped me a lot, and hopefully this is helpful to other people, that it doesn't have to be like this. And actually, there are plenty of partnerships where it is equitable. The partnership
Mm-hmm.
I'm in now, this is the first time he is all in. He is driving the bus right with me. We have these kinds of conversations, and other people have that experience too. I almost think that a big part of trying to address things is knowing this actually isn't inevitable and it doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be this way. Um, because I think part of what holds people back is they're like, well, this is just, all men are like this. And they're not. They're actually not. So
Right. Right.
I think that's important to know too. All right. I always ask this question to guests at the end, and it's kind of a whopper of a question. I will say some people have really funny responses and some people have really profound things, but you always get something interesting. What I would like to ask you is in life, what do you know for sure?
You stole it from me. You
Oh, no.
stole it from me. Things don't have to be this way. That's that's it. I know for sure that we can have better.
That's great.
That's
Well,
it.
I think that's the
That's
whole
it.
message of today. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's great. There will be something people remember and they can hang on to that. Laura, I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your mission today and your new book, which is so great. Where can people find you if they want to work with you, read your book, or hear more from you?
Awesome. Yeah. So people can find me at lauradanger.com, all one word. You can find my book anywhere you get books. It is No More Mediocre. And you can get it on audio. So if you are driving, walking, cleaning, doing anything, you can listen to it. I read it myself. But you can also find me on Instagram at that darn chat, all one word.
Perfect. I'm going to put all of this in the show notes too for everyone listening, so you don't have to scribble this down. Just look at the show notes and all of this will be in there, easy for you to cut and paste. Thank you so much for being here today, and to everyone else who's listening to the Happily Never After, especially those of you who are on your own journey. We hope this helps you make some good changes in your life and your relationships. We hope you have a great week.
Thank you.